Hi there, friends. Welcome to today's devotional. I remember those weeks leading up to my wedding, and maybe if you're married, you can go back to those times as well. Remember what those last few weeks felt like. For me, I was so focused on accomplishing what needed to be done for my wedding. I was ready and excited for that day, but I was also looking forward to what was happening afterwards. I was looking forward to starting a new life, moving to a new town, having new family, and I was so caught up in the what was coming that I neglected to live in the moment a little bit. And since those years have gone by, I have looked back on those weeks leading up to my wedding and realized I missed an opportunity to be in a space that I would never be again. I can never go back to that space. I can never be that person again. I can never be a single woman in my last few days of being unmarried. I could never get that time back with my family. But I've subsequently learned not to rush through transition times. And we as a church are entering into this. We're entering into this space where we're not going to have a lead pastor for a while, and we don't know when we will. We are trusting in God's timing with that, and that's okay. But it's easy for us to want to rush on to the next phase, whatever that is. We want to just rush into that. Sometimes it means because we don't want to sit in the hard. We don't want to grieve. We don't want to face the fact that we are going to be missing somebody or something. We also maybe just want to rush on so we know what is coming. We want to be prepared for what we need to do in the future. I feel that. I understand those emotions and those thoughts completely. But as I've been mulling over this devotional for this week and preparing for it, I've been thinking a lot about the time between when Jesus ascended to heaven and Pentecost. And I was thinking about the disciples and the way that they waited well. They did not rush. They waited patiently, and that is something that I desire for us as a church, and I pray that we're able to do in this season. You know, oftentimes we look at the disciples and we think they had to know everything in that space. I'm sure that they had it all figured out, but we know that they didn't. They had relatively little to go on. Jesus had told them, stay in Jerusalem, just stay here and wait. And what a hard thing that has to do. You got to remember, there's Peter in this group, and John and Matthew. They just were raring to go. They were excited about the news of Christ's resurrection, and they had this, and they wanted to take it and do something with it. But Jesus said, wait. And they waited, and they were obedient. And God blessed them for that. God poured out his Spirit on them, and he did what he asked them to wait for. He brought his Spirit and impacted the world. And so I'm wondering for us as a church in this waiting time, in this interim time, this transition time, if we can maybe step back, pause, and remember what we have been called to do. We remember what Jesus has commissioned us as a church to do, who we are as Fort St. John Alliance Church, and even do things like supporting the board in their revisioning process, praying for them, praying for us as staff. We would always appreciate that. Pray for the ministry leaders who are continuing to carry on and further their callings in their ministries. And also what we as each one individually can do is realize that we have a choice to make. Daily, for sure, weekly, how we engage with the church, but also what is God calling us to do in this waiting time? Is there time to grieve? Is there time to process? Is there time to lean into what he is doing here at Fort St. John Alliance Church and not just rush on, but be patiently waiting for him to call us into what he wants us to? Whether it is steps of obedience, like participating in the stuff here, the ministry that happens here at church. Maybe it's praying in a new and fresh way for something that God has laid on your heart. Maybe it is caring for one another. But whatever the case is, I encourage you and I encourage us as a body of believers not to just rush into this next season just to get through it, but to realize that God has us in this place in this time for a reason, that he has something beautiful for us in this space. And to, like the disciples, wait on Jesus for what he is leading us to do. So until next time, we'll talk to you soon. God bless.